Hello and welcome to Tech Deals. In September of 2020, NVidia launched the long-awaited RTX 30 series. They were wildly well received, stocks were plentiful, and everyone lived happily ever after. Oh wait, that's not what happened at all. Today, almost 2 months post-launch, the RTX 3080 is still very hard to find. Should you keep searching for it? Should you keep your older 80 series video card for a while longer? Or perhaps should you search for something else? Today, we're going to find out by comparing 4 generations and 6 years of 80 series cards from the GTX 980 to the RTX 3080. Today's video is brought to you by Humble, the leader in awesome PC game, comic book, and software deals. Get over $200 worth of games you actually want to play for just $12 with Humble Choice. More details after the video. This is the second of 3 videos comparing these 4 cards together. Today's video will be at 1440p high detail. There is a reason for this. So before you all run to the comment section to say, the RTX 3080 is a 4K card, give me a minute to explain. First, yes, the RTX 3080 is typically pitched as a 4K card, but I think that's a touch misguided, at least for the 10GB card that we have today. 1440p is likely to last way longer than a week and a half due to VRAM limits at 4K. Second, the older cards no longer have amazing performance at 4K, so this provides for a useful comparison across 4 generations of cards at actually playable frame rates. Third, I believe that 1440p 144Hz monitors are the sweet spot for a premium experience at a reasonable price and are far more common than 4K monitors. Finally, in addition to just seeing the RTX 3080's performance, some of you may be interested in the 1080 or 2080 as used card purchases, and this video provides that information as well. Now, this isn't a review of the RTX 3080 itself. I won't be talking about CUDA core counts or ray tracing technology here. This is meant to be a straight-up comparison of the 4 cards with real performance numbers, percentage difference charts, dollar cost per frame per second charts, and a fresh look in newer games on all of the cards. All of the benchmark charts in this video, along with the other 2 resolutions, are already posted to our Patreon, linked in the video description below. If you'd like an easy way to just see all the numbers across all these benchmarks without scrolling through 3 different videos, please consider supporting us there for just $2 per month. Our standard test bench for today is a i9 9900K at 5 GHz. Corsair's H150i Pro 360mm liquid cooler provides the cooling. A Gigabyte Z490 Aorus Master motherboard provides the foundation. 32 gigabytes of DDR4 4000 CL19. A 500 gigabyte Samsung 970 EVO boot drive, an ADATA SX 8100 2TB game drive, and last but certainly not least, a Seasonic 80 Plus Titanium Prime 750 watt power supply rounds it out. All the footage you're going to see was captured on an AverMedia Live Gamer 4K hardware capture card in a second PC, so the test bench didn't even know it was being recorded. Our first game today is Assassin's Creed Odyssey, one of the more challenging games to run due to its infamous Ubisoft optimization. You can see all 4 card benchmarks on the screen now in a quad format. Now, this lets you watch all the tests at the same time, but it does make it rather hard to see those numbers in real time due to the very small MSI Afterburner readouts. That is why the full runs of all the games won't be shown this way here, but we will post them all to the Rogue Tech Gaming channel, linked down in the video description below. At 1440p, Assassin's Creed Odyssey scales very well across the GPUs, showing solid performance improvements at every step. Even with an RTX 3080, however, we don't have 144 frames per second average. So if you recently upgraded to a 1440p 144Hz monitor and you really want to use it, this should grab your attention. Anno 1800 is a game we recently added by viewer request, something new that isn't a first-person shooter or similar type action game. This time we have the game in quads but zoomed in to show just the MSI Afterburner part so you can read the numbers easier on a smaller screen or mobile device. The views for Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Anno 1800 are both included in the full runs over on Rogue Tech Gaming. The performance jump from a GTX 980 to a 1080 is dramatic in this game. It isn't double, but it's close. Stepping up to the RTX 2080, you can see why that card was so disappointing when it launched. It really wasn't a worthwhile upgrade over the 1080. Thankfully, the 3080 fixes all that with almost 200 frames per second, which is perhaps overkill in Anno 1800, but it shows what the card can really do. Borderlands 3 is a challenging game to run at 1440p, only reaching 76 frames per second on an RTX 2080. Here, we're showing you only the 2080 and 3080 performance side by side so you can see everything more clearly. Each follow-up game will pick different cards to compare in this format to make it easier to read so you can see what's going on. Now, to be sure, the 2080 on the left runs the game just fine, but this is at 1440p high, not ultra. The RTX 3080 blows it out of the water with noticeably higher performance, nearly 144 frames per second. Looking at the chart, you can again see that the 1080 was the big upgrade over the 980, and the 2080 was less impressive. The 3080 leaps ahead with incredible performance. Hopefully they come back in stock soon because this is the real upgrade deal over a 1080, assuming you can get one for retail price. Now before we go, notice the 1% low numbers. The RTX 3080 has a blowout performance here, almost reaching 120 frames per second on the 1% low. It is worth noting that the 3080 has a 1% low that is almost double what the 2080 produces in average frame rate. That's how you know you've got a real upgrade. F1 2020 is one of those games that runs well on modest hardware while looking awesome. Why can't more games do that? Here you can see the GTX 980 on the left and the 1080 on the right. Want 60 frames per second in this driving game? A 6-year-old GTX 980 will do it. Want 144 frames per second at 1440p? A 4-year-old GTX 1080 will do that. 81 frames per second average with a 67 frames per second 1% low on the GTX 980 is frankly awesome performance for a 6-year-old graphics card. This also shows that not everyone needs to buy the newest, shiniest, fanciest graphics card for every game. Having said that, I can just call attention to the RTX 3080 and the crazy frame rate. If you have a 1440p 240Hz monitor, you found your new graphics card. Far Cry New Dawn is next, the latest in the open world series going back many years. Far Cry 6 is coming sometime next year, but for now, we have the follow-up to Far Cry 5 to test. The GTX 1080 on the left really is enough for most people if you're treating this as a 1440p 60 frame per second AAA game, and you're happy with those settings. Want 144 frames per second? Switch to the RTX 3080 on the right, and you are good to go. On the graph of all 4 GPUs, only the 980 really lags behind, and not being the right choice for AAA games in 2020, to be honest. It does technically run at 60 frames per second, but it really won't be a good experience. Any of the other cards are fair choices, and with more performance, the more you spend. Ghost Recon Breakpoint is a demanding open-world game that pulls no punches. Here, you can see the GTX 1080 versus the RTX 3080 side by side. In fairness, this shows how the 1080 is still a solid card at 1440p, and if you own one, there isn't a huge need to replace it this year. That being said, if a premium experience is your thing, then perhaps a 3080 makes sense. Remember, this is high detail. There are several detail levels above high that you can use if you want a prettier game. The chart of all 4 cards shows just how poorly the 980 has aged in 2020 for this AAA game. The difference is dramatic, partly owing to the lack of VRAM, partly due to the lack of optimized drivers because NVIDIA really isn't optimizing the 900 series anymore, and partly due to how good the 10 series really was. The RTX 3080 didn't blow away the 2080 at 1080p, but it does here at 1440p. Horizon Zero Dawn, a PS4 port to the PC that is a good example of the mistake that some people make when they compare console hardware to PC hardware. Consoles are very well optimized to run in one specific configuration with the games adjusted to have the right amount of detail to run on that hardware. There's no such thing as medium, high, and ultra detail options on a console. On the PC, we have solid performance on the RTX 2080 on the left, but this is at high detail at 1440p on a GPU that has more than 7 times the performance of the PlayStation 4's GPU. The RTX 3080 on the right outright demolishes the 2080. It isn't twice as fast, but it's pretty close. This is what Jensen was promising when he did his press announcement. The GTX 980 is not really functional here at 42 frames per second. It isn't the right card for this game. You could lower the detail to low and you could get it to run, but why bother with 1440p at that point? The 1080 barely holds 60 frames per second, dropping below that in the 1% low. The 2080 is a tiny jump above that, getting you just a bit more, and the 3080 blows them all away. At 1440p, the RTX 3080 is more than double the performance of the 1080 here. That brings us to our final game, The Division 2, one of my favorite games of the past 2 years. It's like being Chuck Norris in an 80s action movie. You run into the room and you mow down dozens of bad guys all by yourself. Here, we're comparing the best deals again, the 1080 versus the 3080, and boy, what a difference this is. More than twice the frame rate, going from 80 frames per second on the 1080 to 184 frames per second on the 3080. Now that's a solid improvement in just 4 years. Looking at the full chart, the story is once again the same. The 1080 was the deal 4 years ago, the 2080 was not the deal 2 years ago, and the 3080 blows them all away today. And if you can get a 3080 for retail price today, it is a solid 1440p choice. It's overkill for 1440p high in this game to be sure, but it also shows what the cards can do if you have a high refresh rate monitor and you want the best. And the 980, again, isn't worth considering here. It really can't keep up in games like this. Our next chart is the 8-game average across all 4 cards. The GTX 980 really doesn't hold up anymore at 1440p. Not for new games anyway. Older games, esports games, casual games, sure, but not for these sorts of games. 51 frames per second is technically playable, but with a 1% low of 42 and only 4 gigabytes of VRAM, it's really not suitable for today's selection of games, with the exception of F1 2020. The RTX 2080 clearly was not the improvement we all hoped it was, coming in at 113 frames per second average versus 89 on the 1080. While that is faster, it's only 27% faster, which really isn't worth replacing a video card over. Finally, that brings us to 178 frames per second average and 130 frames per second 1% low on the 3080. These numbers are awesome for 1440p gaming on high refresh rate displays, or simply any 1440p gaming if you'd like to have a few years of solid life in front of you before it's time to start shopping for a new card. To save you some math, here are the percentage differences between the cards, using the average frame rate of all 8 games. Again, the GTX 1080 and RTX 3080 are the deals here. The 1080 is 75% faster than the 980, and the 3080 is 250% faster than the 980. That is a wallop. Removing the 980 from the list shows a different way to look at the numbers. The 2080 being 27% faster than the 1080, and the 3080 being outright double the performance of the 1080. Now, is it worth upgrading from a 2080 to a 3080? Maybe. If you could find a deal on one and sell your current card and you prefer high frame rates, it might be worth the flip. But keep in mind, we'll be getting an RTX 3080 Ti sooner rather than later with 20 gigabytes of VRAM, so you may just want to wait for that. And then, of course, AMD has their big Navi RDNA 2 cards, which we will cover as soon as we can get our hands on one. Finally, that leads me to my favorite chart amongst the bunch, the dollar cost per frame per second chart. I've put all the prices of each card on the screen as they stand in November of 2020, either new or eBay. The GTX 1080 used for $300 is worth considering for 1440p gaming, or you can hold out for a new 3080 if you can get one for retail price. The other two aren't worth considering unless the prices change. An RTX 2080 is worth perhaps $100 more than a 1080, but that's about it. It should be selling for $400, but it isn't due to the 3080 being completely out of stock. Once the 3080 comes back into stock, expect the 2080 to fall quickly in value. Do keep in mind, these numbers will change dramatically at 1080p and 4K. That's why this video was only covering 1440p. Trying to shove 3 resolutions and nearly 100 benchmark runs all into one video would make this entirely too long, and all the nuance would get lost in the process. That is why the other 2 videos will be linked down below. Please check those out if you're interested in a different resolution. Humble is a company that prides itself in the almost $200 million raised for charity in the past 10 years. Everything they sell, from the monthly choice program to the awesome bundle deals to the Humble store, directly supports various charities. Humble Choice is the best deal in PC gaming, hands down. You get up to 12 games a month for just $12. No commitment, cancel anytime, and keep the games forever. You get individual Steam keys to keep or gift to various friends, plus you gain access to the Humble Trove, a collection of 90 plus DRM-free games that you can download and keep forever. As a bonus, you get up to 20% off the Humble store, plus the confidence of knowing that you're buying directly from the game publishers. Humble does not use any third parties to source their game keys. All are 100% direct from the publishers, so you know you're getting the real deal. Check out this month's Humble Choice games using the link in the video description below. Using that link supports our channel and gets you awesome game deals that will keep you entertained for hours. Thank you all so much for watching to the very end of this video. 2 gold stars for all of you. Like this video if you like it, share it with your friends if you love it. Remember to subscribe to the channel with the big huge red button directly below. Links to Amazon, Newegg, and eBay for all of these cards will be down in the video description below. Notice the retail price tag. None of these are product samples. We had to buy all of these cards. Your support using the links down below whenever you shop, no matter what you buy, directly supports our ability to go out and buy all these things so that we can provide these in-depth reviews. Comments down below. I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Did you like the 1440p test here? Did you like the game selection? Do you want different games tested? What resolution do you play at? Hopefully it's 1440p if you've watched this far. I will be looking forward to reading all of your comments, and we'll use your feedback for future videos. Thank you so much for watching. We will see all of you next time.